Greetings, friends. You are on the channel Military Reporter, and today we will discuss with you the situation in Ukraine on 20 March 2025. A huge number of events have taken place today. Let's start with the Sudzha protrusion, where the map has been slightly adjusted. Let's pay attention to the changes in the area of Kazakai Lokhnyi, as well as in the area of Shkai, even with a small entry into the territory that was controlled by Ukraine until yesterday. All these adjustments were made on the basis of objective control shots. In the area between Melivoy and Hoholevka, footage was published on which we can observe Russian units. The footage is not of very good quality, but here we can clearly see Russian soldiers moving through forest belts, ravines and fields. Measures are being taken to clear the area of the remnants of Ukrainian units. All of this is being commented on by Russian officers who are showing in real time where the Russian soldiers are moving and where the Ukrainian positions are located. Part of the positions have been captured. It was at this point that the Russian units were moving. Information about this advance is confirmed by various neutral cartographers on the basis of objective control footage. Russian equipment was also recorded entering the territory of the settlement and driving along the entire Ruben. On the footage we see a huge amount of destroyed Ukrainian equipment, traces of fires and fighting. Somewhere else something is still burning, something is blazing. It seems that literally in 6 km the front line is already passing. Based on this footage, it can be concluded that the positions previously considered as disputed territories in the area of Kazakai Lokhnyi are definitely already under the control of Russian units, as the movement here is quite calm. Footage of trophy vehicles that continue to be pulled out of Sudzha and Sudzhan agglomeration continues to be published. Footage of how Sudzha looks now after 7 months of fighting is being published. Overall, we can see with you that despite the slowdown in the pace of the offensive and mopping up, the movement continues. However, over the past few days, this slowdown is primarily due to the fact that the Ukrainian armed forces have been trying to break through the state border towards Belgorod region for the 3rd day in a row. So far, however, the Ukrainian side has not succeeded in doing anything useful. Footage of strikes on vehicles that are just crossing the border of the Russian Federation continues to be published. When on the 3rd day it became clear that the Ukrainians were not planning to stop, but were repeating the attack every day, the Russian Federation decided to increase its grouping on this section of the front. Aviation has been pulled up, and today a large number of shots of strikes on vehicles that do not even have time to cross the border are already being published. Strikes are carried out by Ka-52, Alligator, helicopters, which simply destroy everything. Also, the publication of footage of drone strikes on engineering equipment and various demining installations continues. All the equipment is destroyed. In general, even if a few days ago we were receiving footage from a little further north, from the side of the forest belt, it is already happening at the base of the settlement Demidovka. Now all the footage is coming from the state border. Ukrainian units have not been able to move even a few meters away from the border. The equipment was destroyed either by drones or aviation. Today, for the first time, footage was published from the village of Lyman, where the Ukrainian side tried to cross the border with a Bengali tank. The tank was moving very slowly, but could not get far. First it was hit by Lance, then it was attacked by drones, and finally the point was covered by the Russian Federation with a volley fire system. Overall, the offensive came to a halt. A distinctive feature of the 3rd day of fighting in the Belgorod area was the large number of published images from the positions of the Ukrainian army. On them we see a Ukrainian artillery installation, 3 axes, which was used to strike at the positions of the Russian army, which supported the offensive towards Demidovka and Grafova. These installations were destroyed. A little further south in the locality of Krasnopoly, the first footage of FABs and drones striking Ukrainian army depots and positions is already being published. We see that the attack was first stopped, and now the Russian army has started working on the rear. Warehouses, artillery pieces and equipment are being destroyed. As a result, the offensive has actually choked before it could begin. Next we move to the North Kuban direction. Russian units have taken the Ukrainian forces in pincers. In the next 24 hours or 2 or 3 days, the Ukrainian armed forces will be forced to start retreating from Kamenka, otherwise Ukrainian units will be encircled. In addition, another settlement along the Oskol River appears to be coming under the control of the Russian armed forces. There is a very important point here that I missed at the beginning of the video, but I will return to it now as it has become more relevant. Today, separate pro-Russian and very reliable sources reported that during a phone conversation between Putin and Trump, Putin conveyed a very important message to Trump. He said that the Russian Federation expects that in the near future, not in 6 months, not in a year, not in a decade, but precisely in the near future, Trump and the United States of America will officially recognize Kherson, Donetsk, Lugansk, Zaporozhye and Kherson as parts of the Russian Federation. This should be done at the official level. In response, the following was offered as a gesture on the part of the Russian Federation. The Russian side undertakes in the course of hostilities and further negotiation process not to make demands on Odessa and other territories of Ukraine. It was said that if in March-April everything is recognized as it is, the situation will be over. If this does not happen, then by the time the final agreements are signed, the Russian Federation will lay claims to a number of other regions. This information is now being actively discussed, and we can see that all of this fits into the overall strategy of the offensive operations that the Russian side continues to carry out. Now let's return to the situation in Kamenka. According to available reports, Kamenka may have already been encircled. Although geolocations that could confirm this have not been published yet, the sources spreading this information are quite reliable. Moreover, it is confirmed by both pro-Russian and neutral sources. Next we move on to pins. Here we also have footage and a small adjustment of the front line in the area of Western. Ukrainian sources publish footage of strikes on Russian units. Based on the video published by the 151 ST Mechanized Brigade of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, a map correction was made in this area, but it is not of strategic importance. It is also worth noting that yesterday we discussed the Channel Operative Plane, which publishes information about the troop grouping West. Yesterday, pro-Russian sources already claimed that the Russian side was storming the settlement of Yampol. Today the same sources report that the armed forces of the Russian Federation have already entered and are clearing such settlements as Tishchenkov, Kondrashev and Malaya Shapkov. If we summarize everything that is now being painted by pro-Russian sources, we can conclude that the Russian Federation already controls a significant bridgehead. However, I repeat that so far no source has confirmed this information at the geolocation level. This is a very serious advance, and we have not yet received confirmation on the Lyman direction. The situation continues to develop and we may receive more concrete evidence in the near future. If they appear, it will mean that the situation on Severokupyansky and in general on Kupyansky direction is radically different from what is described in most Telegram channels and other sources. At the moment, it all seems like some kind of fairy tale, but we shouldn't rush to conclusions. We'd like to get some explanations or footage. Next, we move toward the Chasiv Yar and Toretsk directions, where the Russian Federation has been conducting an offensive operation for the 4th day in a row. Today, new footage of objective control has appeared from the area of Chasiv Yar. Of course, it may seem that the footage is archival, but snow recently fell, the weather was bad, and there were several days of freezing temperatures. Therefore, the footage may be recent. In these videos, we can observe a Russian Federation assault operation. Some Ukrainian units are striking in the area of Rozliv, Stavka, and Klibopekarnia. Based on this footage, we have adjusted the map, but for now, we are keeping it unchanged. In the Toretsk direction, the Russian army continues its offensive. Additional footage of objective control appeared today, confirming the breakthrough of Russian units north of Sudzha Toretsk. In these videos, we can already see the 28th Brigade of the Ukrainian Armed Forces striking Russian army positions on the territory of the mine itself. Let me remind you that yesterday, Footage of objective control was published, showing Russian soldiers already occupying positions in trenches and dugouts far to the north and northwest of Toretsk and Sudzha Toretsk. Yesterday, a strike was reported in this area, and based on that information, we updated the map. Thus, today we receive yet another confirmation of the presence of Russian forces in the northern part of the mine, as well as confirmation from various cartographers. We can see that the fighting for northern Toretsk has either already ended or is approaching its logical conclusion. The situation in the Zabaka neighborhood remains unclear. How events will unfold there is still uncertain. The Russian army also continues its offensive in the pocket between Toretsk and Chasiv Yar. Here, the settlements of Livka and Bila Ora are located, where a large number of Ukrainian armed forces' strongholds are concentrated practically every meter. It generally seems that some kind of underground city exists in this pocket, and it's hard to predict how quickly the Russian army will be able to advance here. Nevertheless, Russian units are gradually moving forward, albeit not very quickly. Next, we move toward the Pokrovsk direction. The main events today took place in the village of Shevchenko. Independent cartographers, as well as footage of objective control from this section of the front, confirm that Russian units have managed to fully regain control over the village of Shevchenko after counterattacks by the Ukrainian armed forces that were carried out in early March and late February. These actions were practically parallel to the Russian operation in the Sudzhansky district. Based on today's footage and geolocations, we can confidently confirm that as of March 20, the Russian side has regained control over all positions that were lost during the Ukrainian counteroffensive. Thus, after Shevchenko, the next target remains Pokrovsk. Next, we move toward the southern Donbass direction. According to various cartographers, nothing new has happened here. All these territories, according to most experts and those monitoring the front line based on geolocations, have long been under Russian control. Fighting is also reported near Sherbakov, Mali Sherbakov, and Stepov. Today, reports also mention the village of Lobkov. Let me remind you that earlier we discussed a strike on Kropivnitsky, which resulted in the destruction of an ammunition train that was apparently heading towards Zaporizhia to support Ukrainian units on this part of the front. These units most likely did not receive the supplies they were expecting. We will continue to monitor how this situation develops and whether the Russian army will continue to advance. Today, there has also been unusual activity in Kherson. A large amount of footage was published within 24 hours, showing strikes on either warehouses or positions with FAB, high-explosive bombs, near the stadium. The footage shows an explosion, possibly the destruction of a warehouse as a result of a drone strike or a FAB strike. It's difficult to tell exactly what happened, but secondary detonation can be seen. Slightly to the north, another FAB strike on Ukrainian armed forces positions was recorded. In addition, another explosion was recorded in Kherson, near the village of Tamarina. We see that the Russian side is increasing the intensity of aerial bomb strikes on Ukrainian armed forces positions on the Ukrainian side of the Dnieper River. We saw a similar picture from March 2023 to November 2024, but due to poor weather, the publication of such footage had stopped. Now, it appears that we are entering another period when dozens, if not hundreds, of such videos will be published daily along the entire shoreline. That's all for now, dear friends. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel, leave your likes, and all the best to you.